All right. Hello, everybody. All right. Wow. This is a little intimidating, I got to say. Last year we had a much more diffuse space. So I just want to welcome you all to your community, Upswell. I also want to thank Heather. We had this extraordinary conversation behind stage. And she really charged me to carry forward the charge she just gave us, which is to hold the land that we walk on and the stewardship of a very painful story. And in the spirit of David Brooks, who just gave a wonderful talk, can we break open ourselves so that that story can then propel us forward? And that is, in fact, what Upswell is about. And so today, briefly, we're going to talk about four things, four questions. The first is, how did we get here in this room? Why is this journey important? What you and we can do with this journey? And then what might be, we're going to call them rules. I'm going to change the language because I was just talking to Krista Tippett earlier. What are the virtues that this community can try and live into? Does that work for everybody? I'm going to assume that's a yes, so we're going to go forward. So what is Upswell and how did we get here? So those of you who know about independent sector know we've been around about 40 years. And we were charged originally with a preoccupation. What is or could civil society be in the United States? And if it was fully itself, what value, what contribution, what kind of community voice could we bring to America? And for 40 years, we have been trying to live into that truth. We live in times now where we've been rethinking how we at Independent Sector actually go about caring for the health of the whole, that all of civil society is rich and dynamic and strong. And so we put aside our branded trade association conference, and we took a risk. Last year we started this, and we said, we believe profoundly that within the context of community, not just the elite, coastal, wealthy institutions, but communities across the United States, there exists a kind of wisdom, a capability of renewing who we are as a community in civil society and as a society here in America. So we took that risk and we said, what we're going to do? We're going to not convene people with a predetermined agenda at 1602, our address in Washington. We're going to go into community and we're going to ask questions of leaders who have positional authority and those that do not. That those see themselves as members of civil society and those that don't. And we took a risk this year in Chicago, and I have to call out Dr. Helene Gale at the Chicago Community Trust and Evan Huckberg at the Crown Family Philanthropies, who partnered with us as co-chairs and took an incredible risk by saying, we're not going to tell you, Independent Sector and Upswell, what we want. We're going to go out into community and we're going to listen. And we did that for a whole year with a group of leaders who had both strong positional authority and those who did not. We went out into a variety of communities and said, what are the pressing issues that we as a community should wrestle with? And we did not predetermine what that agenda should look like, because we believe that in community exists the locally relevant, nationally grounded issues of our day. That if we asked community, we would get to the answers that were the preoccupation for America. And that's what we did. And out of that conversation, out of that dialogue came we were actually shocked that it coalesced so quickly around what would a racial equity framework look like for Chicago. And people began to say, well, could we do this? Could we actually come together, put our minds around what were the 2 or 3 issues around racial equity, and what difference would that make? And I'm delighted to say that because of the magnitude of both those in power and those who had very little power, collectively working together, we were able to get the mayor, the brand new mayor, and her cabinet to actually consider this. And so I want to show you this video.
Hello, I'm Mayor Lori Lightfoot. I'm so glad to welcome Upswell and all of you change makers to Chicago. You have come to the right city because we are in the business of making change. Amazing work is happening across our great city. I know many of you will witness this firsthand. As you listen to some of our city's most talented and committed leaders, learn about innovative work happening in our communities, and visit some of our true gems of our neighborhoods. This includes the work of the Upswell Accelerator that has highlighted the great momentum across our government and communities to advance racial equity in our city. My administration is committed to bringing an equity lens to all that we do, from investing in South and West Side communities to providing a quality education to every child. I know Upswell shares those values. I think one of the most exciting things about Upswell is the chance for national leaders to see the amazing change that's happening in Chicago, to share your own wisdom and experience, which will make Chicago a more equitable city, and to learn something new and take home some inspiration. Thank you all again, and welcome to Chicago.
So if you think that we in this room don't have power, the fact that the group of folks that became the Upswell Accelerator, those people that were meeting routinely over the course of the year, they could deliver a report that has gotten into the cabinet of the new mayor. If you haven't seen it, you can go to the upswell.org website, and under blogs, we've kind of publicly tracked the process. And there's a report that was delivered out of the wisdom of that community. So we have experienced and we know that in community exists extraordinary wisdom. So we invite a group of people. You all have stepped into it. And these are the people that are in the room. Leaders of nonprofits and philanthropy, folks that are dedicated to government and serving the public good, other folks who are consultants, folks that have been innovating on the side in business. You're all here. So the task for us at Independent Sector was, how do we create an environment that actually accesses the wisdom that's in the room? So this is the kind of preoccupation we had. If you think, I'm going to be generous here, if the average age is 37 in the room, and there are 1,500 people in Upswell, that's about 55,000 years of lived experience. So it's a stunning reality when you think about it. And so if you think, how does an organization create an environment where that 55,000 of individual years of experience can collectively come together and unleash incredible social change? So that is the task that we all share. That's what we believe. So we've designed an environment that is not a typical stand and deliver conference, even though I'm on a stage standing and delivering. And we call this social collision. We've developed lots and lots of ways in which you can learn. And that's what I want to talk about today. So many ways that individuals can chart their way through this. We did some math. We have some math whiz at our office. And they figured out that there are actually almost 300,000 individual ways you could take advantage of the different elements in Upswell. So it's a little daunting, right? So we're dead serious that we want to unleash the wisdom. And we're dead serious we want to create a way for you all to then put your questions on the table, help create the answers, and then leap into action. So how do you do that? So that is Upswell. So we have a couple of things. We have organized, based on listening to you all over the course of the year, what are the themes that you care about. And these are the 9 themes. I want to do a couple of shout outs. But before I do, you have 2 tools. One, for the analogs in the room, you have a traditional newspaper. You can read it. It gives you lots of mapping and colors, and you can read it and hold it. For you who are digital natives, or the digital age, you can download the app, which I would highly recommend doing because it does a lot more work for you than this. If you download the app and you go to the schedule, at the very top you'll see filter. And you can filter for both themes and activities. And it will populate a chart for you to get what you need. So while it is overwhelming, and we're intentional about that, you are not alone. Last year we learned that we had to create pathways, and you have those. Analog, digital. So I want to talk a little bit about the themes. So you see the themes. This is what emerged in our conversations both here in Chicago and across the sector. First, I want to talk a little bit about capacity building. We have heard loud and clear. Many of you are coming to this conference. It is a financial sacrifice of time and money. And you have said to us loud and clear, I need to go back to my place and have a set of skills that will help me be bigger, faster, stronger, and better. So we have built lots of capacity building for you. Second thing I want to call out, and you heard it in the opening, is our commitment to, our collective commitment to, diversity, inclusion, and racial equity. It is the issue of our day. It is an extraordinary opportunity for us to step into the reworking of systems. And there are myriad ways that you can show up and be part of folks struggling with, having breakthroughs, and failing throughout the entire Upswell time. The third thing I want to call out is bridging divides. We at Independent Sector, and we believe the Upswell community, is best when it is the fullest and most robust range of those folks committed to social change. That means everybody. And so we want to make sure in this community that there is a capacity for us to bridge difference, whatever that means for you. So there is skill building, there are community conversations, there are lots and lots of ways in which you can give and get and build your capacity to bridge divide. The third thing, or the fourth, I guess, is big ideas. Many of you have gone to conferences and you're like, look, I'm done with conferences. I really want to be challenged and inspired. There are tons of inspiring people, and there are spotlight stages, and there are spark talks. There are a million and one ways for you to get inspired and to go out into the world. The final thing is, and this is kind of a little bit of an exciting breakthrough, on policy and advocacy. We at Independent Sector advocate on behalf of the whole. The design of Upswell is the meaning making. We can think what we think the best policies are in Washington, but what do you all think the best policies are? What do we need structurally to change about civil society so we can be bigger, faster, and stronger at our daily life? An opportunity to do that is tomorrow. We have a number of the policy directors from the presidential campaigns coming to Upswell to engage in a conversation moderated by Dr. Helene Gale and David Brooks. I would highly encourage you all to join that conversation. It's going to be fairly filtered because of the rules of the road, but it is critical for us to have the work here and the work we do every day get in the hearts and minds of future policymakers. The other way that we think about supporting you in this 295,000 ways you possibly could engage with each other is in adult learning styles. So there are lots and lots of different ways that you, in your own way of proceeding, can take advantage of it. Some of you like workshops and are kind of want to be able to get more receive. You spend most of your life standing and delivering. Other folks want to be in conversations, or they have a problem that they're working on, or they want to go out into the community and kind of learn and see what practitioners are doing. So we've designed for the way multiple folks can learn so that you can't hide. You can't retreat from the opportunity to engage the themes that are important to you and do that in a way that is most accommodating to how you learn. So we've tried very hard to say that this is our community. This is the one we can construct, and our job at Independent Sector is to create the conditions for that to happen. So in the spirit of virtues, norms, how does this community come together? The first is we'd ask that each of you actually own your, on average, 37 years of experience. That actually is valuable, and that you bring that as a resource, and you're unafraid to share what you've learned. We ask that you do that with a recognition that it is only 37 years of experience, and that there are 55,000 years around us. And so there is a epistemological humility, as our friend likes to say, or just a humility about learning and about sharing what you know and making a space for what you don't. So I'm a huge fan of technology, but I also realize a lot of the time it's like a force field around me from connecting. There are 295,000 ways in which you can connect with people. We have worked really hard, but we can only do that as if you, when you're not needing to do this, put this down. And whether that's in the line for food or on the elevator, getting on a bus, that you are truly available to the people around you. Because we believe that in order to be able to make space for someone who is not like you or shares a difference, you have to send that signal out. So we ask that you are welcoming of different points of view, and you also are willing to cross a bridge into habitating in somebody else's worldview. The second to last virtue that we ask you to do is focus on relationships and not transactions. So those of you who've been around independent sector have heard me say this before. I have both, in my day job, I'm a nonprofit leader, and in my kind of volunteer life, I sit on the board of a wonderful organization, the Fetzer Institute, which is one of the big funders here. So I see philanthropy and nonprofits. As a nonprofit leader, I can be like a vampire looking at philanthropy like a blood bank and attach myself to the neck and try and suck that dry. And in the philanthropic role, I can often feel like I have a vampire stuck to my neck, right? So I'm retreating. And I, as a social architect, because I know it's best for society, look to the nonprofit sector as contractors to my theory of change. So we're asking you to put both of those aside for a little bit and focus in on the who is in front of you, because we believe that relationships are actually what is transformative in life and not theories of change or money. And finally, we're going to ask you to reflect. Again, in a conversation recently with Krista Tippett, she made a really interesting point. She said, you know, we are at an inflection point in our history as a nation, and having a moral imagination matters. So how do you cultivate a moral imagination when you are constantly in motion? I and we don't think that's possible. That there is a discipline about pulling back and reflecting. Some of you do that by yourself. Sometimes you do that in community. We are agnostic about how you do that, but we really believe that we can't chart a pathway forward. This community can't get strong unless we build the competency of being reflective. So much so that, again, through the partnership with the Fetzer Institute, we have built into the design of Upswell, not as a kind of sideshow, but in the very design, the capacity for you to reflect. It isn't kind of a nice to do. We see it as just as important as the workshops or the political advocacy work or going out into community and finding that wonderful breakthrough leader who helps you crack open a problem that you have been unable to solve. So with that in mind, I am going to bring onto the main stage both a close friend and someone I admire a great deal, Swami Jayadevi, who runs an ashram in Atlanta. And what is moving to me is that it is a perfect balance between deep reflective practice and social change. So with that, I want to thank you all for being here. It is a great honor and actually somewhat of a, for the team that I get to work with, a little bit overwhelming to have to hold the belief that it is not our agenda, but our collective work that can actually unleash the kind of social change that our country so needs. So I hope the next 2.5 days are exquisite. Grab us, tell us, give us your feedback, and reflect. Thank you very much.